One accidental photo destroyed my perfect life, turning neighbors into judges and gossip mongers, and even made my husband question me. Rumors of a secret affair with my neighbor spread like wildfire, costing me friends, my reputation, and nearly everything I loved. In just a few weeks, my world fell apart, and 3 years later, I'm still trying to piece my life back together. I need to tell this story because it's been 3 years, and I'm still dealing with the aftermath. This is about how a single photograph, a misunderstanding, and a neighborhood full of bored gossips destroyed my marriage, my career, and my reputation. I didn't do anything wrong, but that didn't matter. Once the rumor mill started turning, there was no stopping it. My name is Jennifer, and until 3 years ago, I had what everyone would call a perfect life. I was 34, married to my college sweetheart Michael for 9 years, mother to 2 beautiful kids aged 6 and 4. We lived in one of those upscale suburban neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone, where the houses all look vaguely similar, where people care deeply about lawn maintenance and whether you put your garbage bins away on time. I worked as a marketing manager for a tech company, making good money but with reasonable hours that let me be present for my kids. Michael was a successful architect with his own small firm. We had the big house, the nice cars, the annual family vacations. From the outside, we looked like we had it all figured out. Our neighborhood was the kind of place where everyone was friendly, but also quietly competitive. Who had the best landscaping, whose kids got into the gifted program, who threw the most impressive birthday parties. The women had a group chat that was supposedly for organizing playdates and sharing recommendations, but was really just a gossip engine running 24/7. I was friendly with most of the neighbors, but not deeply close to anyone. I'd chat at the mailbox, attend the occasional block party, coordinate Halloween trick-or-treating, but I kept my private life private. I didn't share details about my marriage or my work or any problems I might be having. That turned out to be a mistake, because when you don't control the narrative, other people will create one for you. 2 houses down from us lived a man named David. He was 38, divorced, no kids, worked in finance. He'd moved in about a year before everything happened. He was attractive in a generic way, kept to himself mostly, seemed nice enough in the brief interactions we'd had. David traveled a lot for work. His house would sit empty for weeks at a time, then he'd be back for a while before leaving again. He'd hired a lawn service and cleaning service to maintain the place while he was gone, so the house never looked neglected even when he wasn't there. I'd talked to David maybe a dozen times total. Brief conversations about the weather, about neighborhood matters, about nothing of consequence. Michael had interacted with him even less. David was just the quiet neighbor 2 houses down who we barely knew. That changed when David's pipes burst while he was traveling for work. It was a Tuesday in January, freezing cold, middle of winter. I was working from home that day because my daughter had a dentist appointment in the afternoon. Around noon, I noticed water running down the street from the direction of David's house. A lot of water. I walked over to investigate and saw water pouring out from under his garage door. The pipes had clearly burst somewhere inside, and water was flooding his house. I tried calling the number on the real estate sign that was still in his yard from when he'd bought the place, but got voicemail. I didn't have David's personal number. I did what any reasonable neighbor would do. I called the fire department non-emergency line to report the flooding. They came out, forced entry into the house, and shut off the main water line. But by then, significant damage had been done. The fire department asked if I knew how to reach the homeowner. I didn't, but I knew he worked for a big financial firm downtown. I found the company online and called their main line, eventually reaching someone who said they'd get a message to David. David called me back within an hour. He was in Chicago for work and was extremely grateful that I'd noticed the problem and called it in. He asked if I could meet the insurance adjuster and a remediation company at his house that afternoon, since he couldn't get a flight back until the next day. I said sure, no problem. I met the adjuster around 3 p.m., walked through the house with him and the remediation team leader, showing them where the water damage was worst, answered questions about when I'd noticed the flooding, gave them my contact information for their records. The whole thing took maybe 45 minutes. When I left, I noticed one of my neighbors, Cheryl, watching from her window across the street. I waved. She didn't wave back. I thought that was odd, but didn't think much of it. That was my first mistake. What I didn't know was that Cheryl had taken a photo of me leaving David's house. Just me, walking out his front door at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, when most people were at work. The photo was perfectly innocent, but looked suspicious if you didn't know the context. Cheryl sent that photo to the neighborhood group chat with a message. I found out later what it said. Just saw Jennifer leaving David's house. Interesting timing, with Michael at work. That was all it took. One photo, one suggestive comment, and suddenly a story was being created about me having an affair with David. Within hours, the group chat was exploding. People were chiming in with their own observations. Someone said they'd seen my car in front of David's house multiple times. That was true, because sometimes I parked on the street when my garage was full of storage stuff, and his house was 2 doors down. Someone else said they'd noticed me and David talking at the mailbox, and we'd seemed very friendly. Someone else said David was very handsome, and it made sense that women would be attracted to him. One woman, Karen, who I'd never particularly liked, said she'd always thought I seemed cold toward Michael at neighborhood gatherings, that I must have been unhappy in my marriage. Another said she'd heard David was divorced because of an affair, so clearly he had a pattern of being attracted to married women. None of this was based on facts. It was just speculation and gossip, and people creating a narrative that was more interesting than the boring truth. But once it started, it took on a life of its own. I had no idea any of this was happening because I wasn't in the neighborhood group chat. I'd been added when we first moved in, but had muted it after a few weeks because it was just constant notifications about nothing important. I found out that evening when Michael came home from work. He'd been added to the group chat by one of the husbands who thought he should know what his wife was doing. He walked in the door and immediately asked me why I'd been at David's house. I explained about the burst pipes and the insurance adjuster. Michael seemed satisfied with that explanation. He said he'd post in the group chat and clear things up. I still didn't understand the scope of what was happening. Michael posted a message explaining the situation, that David's pipes had burst, that I'd been helping out as a good neighbor, that everyone should stop speculating and spreading rumors. You'd think that would be the end of it. You'd be wrong. The rumors intensify. Several people in the group chat responded to Michael's explanation with messages like, "How do you know that's really what happened?" And "She'd obviously tell you a cover story." And "I'm sure that's what she told you, but there's more to this." Someone pointed out that I could have just called the fire department and left it at that. Why did I need to go inside David's house? Why did I need to meet with the insurance people? Why was I so involved in a neighbor's personal business? Another person said their friend worked at David's company and had heard David took a sudden flight home that day. Why would he rush home if it was just a burst pipe being handled by professionals? Obviously, he was coming back because of me. The rumors spread beyond just the group chat. People were talking at school pickup, at the grocery store, at the gym. Within days, it seemed like everyone in our social circle had heard some version of the story that I was having an affair with David. The worst part was how quickly people believed it. Despite knowing me for years, despite never having any reason to question my character or my marriage, so many people immediately assumed the worst. They wanted to believe the scandalous version because it was more entertaining than boring reality. About a week after the initial incident, David came to our house. He'd heard about the rumors and wanted to address them directly. He stood in our living room and told Michael and me that nothing had ever happened between us, that he was grateful for my help with his house emergency, and that he was sorry his situation had caused problems for us. Michael believed him. I appreciated David trying to set the record straight, but the damage was already done. Cheryl, the neighbor who'd started everything with that photo, didn't believe David's statement. She posted in the group chat that of course he'd deny it, to protect his reputation and mine, that men always cover for each other, that we shouldn't be naive. Other women piled on with their theories. Maybe David and I had ended the affair after being caught. Maybe we're just better at hiding it now. Maybe we'd been having an affair for months before the pipe incident, and that's why I'd been so quick to help him. Someone started a rumor that they'd seen David's car parked near my office building downtown. Completely untrue, but it didn't matter. Someone else said their cousin's friend had seen us having lunch together. Also untrue. But each lie added another layer to the story, made it seem more credible. I tried defending myself in the group chat. I posted a detailed timeline of the day, explained exactly why I'd been at David's house, offered to show the fire department report and insurance documentation. Some people seemed to accept it, but many didn't, and my defensiveness was taken as more evidence of guilt. If I had nothing to hide, why was I so upset about innocent questions? Within 2 weeks, my social life in the neighborhood had completely imploded. Mothers who used to chat with me at school pickup started avoiding me. I was uninvited from a book club I'd been part of for 2 years. One woman I'd considered a friend told me she couldn't spend time with me anymore because her husband didn't think it was appropriate given the rumors. The kids started being affected too. My daughter came home crying one day because her best friend's mother wouldn't let them have playdates anymore. My son wasn't invited to a birthday party that all the other boys in his class attended. I confronted the mother who'd excluded my son. She was uncomfortable but honest. She said that while she didn't necessarily believe the rumors, she didn't want to be associated with the drama. Other mothers were judging her for being friendly with me, and it was easier to just distance herself. That's when I realized how deep this went. Even people who didn't believe I'd done anything wrong were cutting me off because association with me had become socially toxic. I was contaminated by scandal, and anyone who supported me risked being contaminated too. Michael believed me. He never doubted that nothing had happened with David, but the constant rumors and social pressure started affecting our marriage anyway. He was frustrated that I'd put myself in this position. Yes, I was just being a helpful neighbor, but I should have known how it would look. I should have been more careful about appearances. I shouldn't have gone inside David's house. I should have just called the fire department and let professionals handle everything. I was hurt that he seemed to be blaming me for other people's gossip and lies. I'd done nothing wrong. Why should I have to manage other people's perceptions and assumptions? Why was he more concerned about what the neighbors thought than about supporting me? We started fighting about it regularly. Michael wanted me to just keep my head down and wait for it to blow over. I wanted to aggressively defend myself and confront the people spreading rumors. We couldn't agree on strategy, and the disagreement drove a wedge between us. Michael also started being weird about my interactions with any men. If I mentioned a male coworker, he'd make comments about whether people at my office were gossiping too. If I was friendly with a waiter or store clerk, he'd point it out later. He said he wasn't accusing me of anything, but the rumors had made him more aware of how things might look to others. I felt like I was being punished for something I didn't do, and I resented Michael for not fighting harder for my reputation. About a month after everything started, my boss called me into his office. Someone had sent an anonymous email to the company's HR department alleging that I was having an affair with a client. The email claimed this was affecting my professional judgment and creating potential conflicts of interest. None of it was true. I wasn't having an affair with anyone, let alone a client. But the company had to investigate any HR complaint, so I was put on paid leave while they looked into it. The investigation took 3 weeks. They interviewed me multiple times, reviewed my emails and calendar, talked to coworkers. They found absolutely nothing because there was nothing to find. I was cleared completely and returned to work. But the damage was done. My coworkers knew I'd been investigated for an affair allegation. Even though I was cleared, there was awkwardness. People didn't know what to say to me. Some avoided me entirely. My reputation at work had been tainted. My boss was sympathetic, but also practical. He suggested I might want to consider looking for opportunities at other companies where I could have a fresh start. It wasn't quite being forced out, but the message was clear. Despite being cleared, my presence had become complicated. I was devastated. I'd worked hard to build my career. I was good at my job. And now I was being pushed out because of a completely false rumor that had spread from my neighborhood to my workplace. 3 months after the initial incident, Michael and I had the worst fight of our marriage. His mother had called him, having heard about the rumors from someone in her social circle. She questioned whether he really knew what his wife was doing, whether he was being naive, whether he should be protecting his interests and his children. Michael defended me to his mother, but the call shook him. He came to me afterwards and asked if there was any possibility, any chance at all, that something had happened with David that I wasn't telling him. Not a full affair, but maybe some emotional connection, some inappropriate conversation, anything that might have sparked the rumors. I was furious. After 3 months of standing by me, he was now doubting me because his mother had doubts. I told him if he couldn't trust me completely without qualification, then we had bigger problems than neighborhood gossip. He said he did trust me, but he was tired of fighting, tired of the rumors, tired of the social isolation, tired of defending him to his family and friends. He wanted to move, get away from this neighborhood, start fresh somewhere else. I didn't want to move. Why should I be driven out of my home because people were spreading lies about me? Why should I have to uproot my children from their schools and friends because neighbors were cruel and judgmental? I wanted to stay and fight to make people acknowledge they'd been wrong about me. Michael said that was pride talking, that sometimes you have to be practical, that our quality of life had become miserable and moving would solve that problem. We couldn't agree. The argument escalated into things we'd been holding back for months. Michael admitted he'd started to resent me for not being more careful about appearances. I admitted I'd started to resent him for caring more about what people thought than about justice. That night, Michael slept in the guest room. It was the first time in our marriage we'd gone to bed angry and in separate rooms. Over the next few weeks, things deteriorated further. Michael and I were barely speaking. We were going through the motions for the kids, but there was no warmth between us. The stress and resentment had killed something in our relationship. 2 things happened that pushed us over the edge. First, David decided to sell his house and move. He told us the neighborhood had become uncomfortable for him too, and his company was offering a relocation opportunity he'd decided to take. Some people took his departure as confirmation that we'd been having an affair and it had ended badly. Others thought he was fleeing town to escape an angry husband. The rumors about David leaving just fed into more rumors about me. Second, Cheryl started a rumor that I'd been seen crying in my car outside David's house the day after he'd put it up for sale. That I'd been devastated he was leaving. None of this happened. I'd never been to David's house after the pipe incident, never cried in my car over him. But the story spread anyway, and people wanted to believe it because it fit the narrative they'd created. When Michael heard that rumor, something in him broke. He told me he couldn't do this anymore. That even though he believed me, the constant stress and rumors and social fallout were destroying him. That he needed space to think. He moved into a corporate apartment his firm kept for clients, told the kids and our families that we were having some problems and taking a break. That break turned into a separation that turned into divorce proceedings. Our divorce was relatively amicable considering the circumstances. Michael didn't fight me on custody or assets. We agreed to split everything 50-50, to co-parent our children, to try to stay friendly for their sake. But the divorce became more ammunition for the gossip mill. People said it proved I'd been having an affair all along, that Michael had finally accepted the truth and left me, that I'd destroyed my family for a fling with a neighbor. Others said Michael had overreacted to innocent rumors and destroyed his marriage because of what other people thought, that he was weak for not standing by his wife. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone thought they knew what had really happened, and almost none of them actually knew anything at all. After the divorce was finalized, I did what Michael had suggested 9 months earlier. I moved, got a new job in a city 2 hours away, found a house in a quiet neighborhood where no one knew me or my history, started completely over. My kids split time between me and Michael. The commute was hard on them, but they adjusted. Michael stayed in the old neighborhood for another year before eventually selling and moving somewhere else too. Neither of us could stand being there anymore. I still struggle with what happened. On one level, I know I did nothing wrong. I helped a neighbor in an emergency. That's what decent people do. I shouldn't have to apologize for that or be punished for it. But on another level, I wonder if I should have been more careful, if I should have anticipated how things would look, if I should have protected myself better from other people's assumptions and judgments. I also struggle with how quickly people believed the worst about me. These were people who'd known me for years, who'd been friendly with me, whose children played with my children, and they immediately assumed I was a liar and a cheater based on one photo and a lot of speculation. It taught me something dark about human nature. People want to believe scandalous things. They want drama and intrigue in their boring suburban lives, and they'll create stories to give themselves that entertainment, even if those stories destroy real people's lives. It's been 3 years now since the photo, the rumors, the collapse of everything. I'm in a better place in some ways. I like my job and my new neighborhood. I've made some new friends who know nothing about my past. My kids are doing well, all things considered. But I'm also damaged in ways I'm still discovering. I'm suspicious of neighbors now, keep everyone at arm's length. I'm paranoid about appearances, constantly worried about how things might look to others. I don't trust easily anymore because I learned how quickly trust can be betrayed. Michael and I are friendly co-parents, but nothing more. The love that sustained us for years couldn't survive the stress and suspicion and resentment. We both carry guilt about that. We destroyed something good because we couldn't navigate through a storm of lies together. I ran into Cheryl once, about 6 months ago, when I was back in the old neighborhood picking up the kids from Michael's. She tried to talk to me, to make small talk like nothing had happened. I walked away without responding. I couldn't trust myself to be civil. I later heard through mutual acquaintances that Cheryl had been the subject of her own neighborhood scandal. Someone had spread rumors about her, and she'd been devastated by how quickly people believed them. I felt a bitter satisfaction hearing that. Maybe she finally understood what she'd done to me. But mostly, I just felt empty. Her suffering didn't undo mine. It didn't give me back my marriage, or my old life, or my reputation. It was just more proof that the neighborhood gossip machine was vicious and indiscriminate. What I've learned. If I could go back and change things, I don't even know what I'd do differently. Not help David with his burst pipes? That seems cruel and wrong. But helping him destroyed my life. There's no good answer. I've learned that reputation is fragile and can be destroyed in moments, that people will believe scandalous lies over boring truth, that even people who know you well will turn on you if social pressure demands it. I've learned that defending yourself against false accusations is nearly impossible. The more you deny, the guiltier you look, but staying silent is taken as admission. There's no winning move when the mob has decided you're guilty. I've learned that marriage is more fragile than I thought. Michael and I loved each other genuinely, but we couldn't withstand the external pressure. The stress fractured us, and once those cracks formed, they couldn't be repaired. I've learned to be more careful, more guarded, more suspicious. I've lost some innocence and openness I'll never get back. I'm harder now, more cynical. I hate that, but I don't know how to change it. The saddest part of all this is what it did to my children. They lost their intact family because of gossip. They had to move away from their friends and schools. They live with the confusion of why mommy and daddy aren't together anymore when we both still love them. I've tried to explain in age-appropriate ways that sometimes grown-ups have problems that aren't anyone's fault, that mommy and daddy both love them very much, that the divorce wasn't because of anything they did. But I know this has affected them. My daughter, who used to be outgoing and confident, is now shy and anxious. My son acts out sometimes, angry at changes he doesn't understand. They're in therapy, and their therapist says they'll be okay eventually, but I carry the guilt of knowing their pain stems from that one photo and the rumors it spawned. They're the real victims here. Not me, not Michael, not even David, who had to sell his house and relocate. The kids, who did nothing wrong and lost so much because adults couldn't be kind or rational or fair. I'm dating again now, tentatively. It's hard to trust people with my history. I'm afraid if I tell someone what happened, they'll wonder if there's truth to the rumors. If I don't tell them and they find out later, they'll wonder why I hid it. I went on a few dates with a man named Tom a few months ago. Things were going well until he Googled me and found some old social media posts from people in my old neighborhood referencing the scandal. He asked me about it. I explained the whole story. He said he believed me, but we should probably take things slow. We never went out again. I don't know if he actually believed me or not. It doesn't matter. The scandal follows me, this ghost I can't escape. I think sometimes about writing to everyone in the old neighborhood, sending some kind of final statement about what really happened and how their gossip destroyed my family. But what would be the point? People believe what they want to believe. Facts don't matter once a narrative is established. I've also thought about confronting Cheryl directly, maybe even suing her for defamation. My lawyer said I probably have a case, given how provably false the rumors were and how much damage they caused. But pursuing it would mean reliving everything, would make the scandal public again, would hurt my kids more. So I do nothing. I just try to move forward and build a new life from the ruins of my old one. If there's anything useful to come from this nightmare, it's lessons I can share with others. First, be very careful about appearances. It's not fair that you have to manage other people's perceptions, but you do. One innocent moment captured in a photo can be weaponized against you. Second, don't underestimate the power of gossip in small communities. Bored people with too much time will create drama for entertainment, and you might become their entertainment without consent. Third, once a rumor starts, it's almost impossible to stop. Truth doesn't spread as fast as lies. Corrections don't get as much attention as scandals. The lie will always be more interesting than the truth. Fourth, even people who know you well will turn on you under social pressure. Don't assume loyalty or friendship will protect you. Most people will prioritize their own social standing over defending you. Fifth, marriages are more fragile than they seem. External pressure can break even strong relationships. Make sure you and your partner are a united front before crisis hits, because if you're not, the crisis will break you. Sixth, sometimes the right thing to do is also the thing that will destroy your life. I still believe I did the right thing helping David with his emergency, but it cost me everything. There's no good answer to that paradox. 3 years later, I still have moments where I'm overwhelmed by anger at the injustice of it all. I did nothing wrong, nothing. And yet I lost my marriage, my home, my community, my reputation, my sense of security, all because one bored neighbor took a photo and other bored neighbors created a story around it. I'm also angry at myself for not fighting harder, for not forcing people to acknowledge the truth, for running away instead of staying and making them face their cruelty. Maybe if I'd been stronger, braver, more persistent, things would have turned out differently. But probably not. You can't reason with a mob. You can't fact-check gossip. You can't force people to care about truth when lies are more entertaining. So I'm here, in a new city, with a new job, in a new house, building a new life, being more careful about everything, trusting less, guarding my reputation like it's made of glass, because I learned it is. Sometimes I drive past my old neighborhood when I'm picking up the kids. I look at the houses, the perfectly manicured lawns, the families walking dogs and pushing strollers. It all looks so peaceful and normal, but I know what lies beneath that surface. The judgment, the cruelty, the willingness to destroy someone's life for entertainment. I'll never be that naive again. I'll never believe in the goodness of community the way I once did. I've seen what people are capable of when they're bored and looking for drama. And I hope, though I doubt it, that some of those neighbors think about me sometimes, wonder if maybe they got it wrong, feel some guilt for what they did, recognize that they destroyed a family based on nothing but speculation and a photo taken out of context. But probably not. People rarely think about the lives they've damaged. They move on to the next scandal, the next source of entertainment, the next person to destroy. And I'm left here, 3 years later, still picking up the pieces, still trying to figure out who I am now that everything I was has been taken from me, still wondering if I'll ever fully recover from being the center of a scandal I never deserved. The answer, I'm learning, is probably no. You don't recover from something like this. You just learn to live with the damage. You build something new from the wreckage. You become someone harder and more cynical than you were before. I miss the person I was before the photo, before the rumors, before everything fell apart. She was more trusting, more open, more hopeful. But she's gone now, destroyed by gossip and cruelty and the realization that even good intentions can't protect you from other people's need for drama. So, this is me now, survivor of a scandal I didn't create, collateral damage in other people's entertainment, cautionary tale about the dangers of helping neighbors and caring what other people think. I didn't do anything wrong, but it didn't matter. And that's the scariest part of all. Did this story get to you? Leave a like and subscribe. More true stories are coming soon.